This is the KingChasing podcast, where we keep Christ at the center of athletics. Here's your host, Brandon Gilmore.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. I'm Brandon, and this is the KingChasing podcast. As always, thanks for joining us, and please make sure to visit our website at theNCCAA.org for more KingChasing content. Well, I'm excited about our guest today, Willie Williams, the head men's basketball coach at Carolina University. Willie has experience in the NCCAA as both a student athlete and coach, having played at Nebraska Christian College and Grace University, even playing in and winning an NCCAA National Championship in 2008 with Grace. Willie had successful coaching stints at both Nebraska Christian and Grace before joining Carolina in 2020. He holds 2 master's degrees, one in education curriculum from Peru State College, and another in human performance and physical education with an emphasis on coaching from Adams State University. Thanks for listening today, and I hope you enjoy my conversation with Willie. Well, hey, Willie, welcome to KingChasing. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Now, you actually played at 2 NCCAA schools. I'm curious, what was your experience as a student athlete at NCCAA schools, and how has that shaped who you are today?
Yeah, as I reflect, I've been a part of the NCCAA now for about 16, 17 years, and it's really the path. I growing up, came from a broken home. My parents had gone through 4 divorces between them by the time I was 18. And by the grace of God, I was able to meet my wife in high school, who was a PK kid and, strong family. And I was planning to go to some JUCO state schools. And even on my visits, there was just some questionable things taking place. And my wife's parents had gone to Nebraska Christian College. And so Coach Lamb, at the time he was there, Chris Lamb, he had reached out to me and just said, instead of going down Northeast Community College down the street, why don't you just come up here for a year and then you can go over there? And so I was like, all right, let's do it. And my wife was planning to go there as well. And man, that completely changed the direction of my life. I was raised Catholic. And so just very, I knew all the catechism, had gone to a parochial school through 8th grade. And so I knew all the right things to say and all that stuff, but didn't have that personal relationship. And when I went to college, all that changed at Nebraska Christian College, and just surrounded by other, other guys that are trying to grow. And then obviously Coach Lamb, who's just, in my eyes, he's a legend, who's, very competitive, but at the same time just loves Jesus. And that just completely set me on the path, which has really directly impacted my marriage and my parenting, and then ultimately my coaching, what I get to do, in my ministry.
That's a great story. Now, in 2008, you were actually able to win an NCCAA National Championship. What do you remember most from that year, and what was it like to play in that type of environment?
Man, it's just crazy how God works. My wife and I had transferred to Grace University after my sophomore year, going to my junior year, and we got married over the summer. And so my junior year at Grace University, we had a really good team, and we had the player of the year on our team, Scott Angelo, and we lost in the semifinals of regionals. And that was just a hard year, going to school full time. I was working 30 plus hours a week, playing basketball, and trying to do this marriage thing for our first year. And then we had, in my opinion, we had 5 guys that all had at some point in their careers made first team all conference and then made first team all region. So we had a really good team, and we lost. And I just remember being like, this is a lot of work. I don't know if this is what I want to do anymore. And my coach, Coach Mott, pulled me in and just said, hey, would you have any regrets if you didn't play your senior year? And that really stung. I was like, you know what, I really would. So it came, and that just, my whole perspective was just different that year. And the group that we had, we may not on paper been as talented as we were the year before, but we really gelled. And the relationships, I just cannot stress enough the relationships that come with sports. It's just, to this day, I talk to a lot of those guys, weekly, monthly. We got together in 2018 and celebrated our 10-year, anniversary of winning it and stuff. And so it was just a great journey. But some of the things that really taught me was that, I went from, number one option, all that kind of stuff in Nebraska Christian College to like, really, I just had to play a role, and even more so, I really wrestled with like, how do you play a role and really understand it's important without getting the worldly success of being like, the leading scorer or all conference or something like that. And man, that was a struggle for me at first, but one that I'm so glad I went through because that's directly impacted my coaching today because I've experienced it. I've experienced it playing a role, and really when you look back, an important role, because all the roles are important if you want to be successful. And so the journey we went on, I mean, we won regionals, and I thought that was the peak. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, it's my senior year. I won it. We had already won a conference championship, my junior year and everything, but I just wanted to win regionals, and we won that regional championship. And I remember just being like, it doesn't get any better than this. We've been 4 years. This was the last rodeo. And then we went to nationals, and I don't know what happened, but we just went on a tear. We won 3 games, just boom, 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 made it all the way to the championship game. And I just remember this there during the national anthem, looking around and just being like, I'm playing in the national championship game. And so when they called my name, as a starter and all that, I just remember like, this is crazy. And then we were playing a team that we had already played. It's our 3rd time playing them that year. And they were the team that had knocked us out the previous year in regionals. And so it was one of those things that we got to play. We were fortunate enough to win. And I mean, again, it's one of those memories that winning a championship at any level, it's just a special, special thing. It's that bond, it's that relationship. And I mean, those are some of my best memories of playing, was just being a part of that team. My wife was there. I mean, it was just a great, It was a great journey. And so, and then just being in that environment at nationals, I was back when it was in, Missouri, back at Central, Coach Kirk and everything, Hansen. And so it was great. So it was just a great experience.
Yeah, that's special. Are there things that you learned as a player from your coaches? You mentioned Chris Lamb, that you now incorporate into your own coaching philosophy?
Yeah, definitely. Well, the biggest thing I got from my coaches is the competitiveness, but it's bigger than just winning. I mean, in our culture, it's just all about winning. You win, everyone loves you. You lose, it's like, what's wrong with you? Or there's kind of was this like, stigma of like, well, you guys are Christians, so it's okay if you lose. Like, it's just you play for God. And I was like, no, I play to win, know? And, started in high school. I was very fortunate enough to have a very godly coach in high school. And, Joel Heiser, who's been coaching high school basketball for 20 some years now. I was very fortunate to have him and his wife, and he actually led FCA in high school. And so that's really where I started to just, pursue Jesus a little bit, and just seeing how he had a competitive fire, but he just cared more about you than just if you produced or not. Then I only played a year under Chris Lamb, and that was one of the most formative years for me. It's just being able to experience him. Who, I mean, this dude, he's funny, he's got jokes, he's competitive, but he just cared about you. He cared. And I really just appreciate that. And then also I played for Coach Mott at Grace University. And, here's a guy, he recognized we were married. He went above and beyond to, like, include my wife, Kendra. Like, he would allow, like, her to go on trips with us. He worked with us in our work schedule. Like, he really went above and beyond because he recognized the importance of a newly wed couple. And I just seen the way these guys cared about you more than just basketball, or more than you could produce on the court. And that's really just kind of shaped my coaching philosophy of, I coach to win, but winning's not everything, and I just try to, that's the lens I look through with each of these guys. And so I'm very thankful to have had them. And again, coming from a little bit of the background, of just, I had no clue what it meant to lead a wife. They're saying, yeah, you need to lead your wife. I'm like, I don't know what that means. You know what I'm saying? I've never seen that,
Right.
And so, it's really just being able to see them live out their faith in their marriages, in their parenting, and then on the court. You got everyone around you cussing, all this kind of stuff, and them just being very just intentional and still bringing that competitiveness. Like, it was just it was a great opportunity for me to be like, I want to be like them.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that, as I've been able to coach, now for about 11 years here in college, I hope I have some players to say, hey, that was a good witness. I want to coach like that as well, or I want to lead my family like that,
Right.
so yeah.
Yeah. Who is someone that you look up to and model yourself after, whether it's one of the guys you've already talked about, a former coach, a mentor, or even somebody that you kind of pay attention to from a distance? And why do you model yourself after them?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I have a couple. When we got married and we call ourselves, babies, we were just so young. I was 20 and my wife was 19, and just walking through that. But the first guy, his name was Justin Curtis. He was one of the pastors at our church. And again, being raised Catholic, I kind of just went to church because I was told if you didn't, you'd go to hell. And so just had to walk through that to where it's like, no, I want to go to church. I want to be in community. And so we got involved in a community group with him. And man, he really poured into me from yeah, you can still love basketball and you could still pursue career, but what's that look like through that to still love your wife and work through that? Like, how do I still be around? Because I mean, that was one of the first things I had a coach tell me when I first took over in college as a head coach. I asked him like, hey, what's some wisdom I can get from you and stuff like that. And one of the things he said, he goes, if I can never go back and do it again, I would make sure my family was first and basketball was second.
Hmm.
And I just remember being at the time, I'm like, well, of course I'm going to do that, but like, I want to know something else. Like, how do you win? Like, I want to win, and as I've, matured and gotten older, you look at that and you're like, wow, like that is really valuable. I got a wife, I got 4 kids, and it's just like time just flies, and
Yeah.
I don't want to be one of those guys that like, man, I'm always recruiting, I'm always on the road, I'm always got games, but I'm missing my own, family's games and all that kind of stuff. And so he really kind of opened my eyes to that, and really just like, okay, what's that look like to balance, in your life and on your roles. And then obviously, each of my coaches played a vital role, but Coach Mott, he was my head coach at Grace University. I had an opportunity, he had left, took another job, and then came back to the school in another capacity, in administration. And so I was working alongside him, and just to see, we went from player coach to colleagues to friends, and to see him be a witness through some of the struggles that was going on in his life, and just how he, I mean, again, how some people can put on a front, but he really just, as he wrestled through it and just put God first, both in personal and professionally, man, that just like opened my eyes to this, how real, his faith was, and how real God is, and it's really, I mean, even to this day, I mean, we stay in contact. He's my mentor. He knows me well because I mean, he's known me since I played, and he's one of the few guys. It's like, he's not afraid to say something. I can be loud, and some people say, "Oh, you're intimidating" or something like that. Like he don't view it that way. He just said, "Hey, I'm just going to speak truth. I'm going to speak what it is," and I value that very, very much. And so, it's just been a huge impact. I mean, to be able to see, coaches like that that have the impact on your life.
Yeah. How do you continue to learn in order to stay on top of things as a coach?
Man, it's one of those things where it's like it's actually a humbling thing, you to have gone through the years and you get to experience some success. You're like, okay, I want to keep doing that. That worked out well. You really ultimately have to determine, it's kind of like your faith. Like, what are things that are just like non-negotiable, and what are things it's like, man, like, okay, they're open-handed. Like I can those can we can change that a little bit. And I've been fortunate enough, obviously I watch a lot of basketball. I love the sport, but you watch a lot of basketball, I mean, at all levels, and you can always learn something. I mean, that's why I love TV now. I can always pause and rewind and be like, oh, that was really nice, let me look at that again. Talking to other coaches, I mean, that's the thing that's awesome. We talk about relationship with players, but you talk to a lot of coaches, before, after games, on the phone, conferences, stuff like that, coaching clinics. You just get to build those relationships, and you just really get to see like how guys do things. Because the reality is it's not necessarily that we come up with something new. It's that someone's already done all this different stuff, and you just get to tweak it in every
Right.
aspect, whether it's X's and O's, whether it's just player management. Whether it's just even things of like, integrating faith and all that, you get to just, you hear all how coach is doing it, like, man, it's really good. And you get to adapt that. And I feel like over the years, I try to be coachable myself. I've had a lot of things that work, and I've been fortunate that almost all my assistants I've had, especially recently, they've all been former players. And so they've now seen that side of it, and then they get to come to this side, and I trust them, And so, there's times, behind closed doors, I'm like, why would I do that? I am not changing that, But then as you walk through it, it's like, all right, you know what? Let's try this.
Yeah.
And it's been great. It's been a good journey for that, because as a head coach, honestly, you're only as good as your assistant coaches. And I back that so much. And in even having captains, I've been fortunate enough, right now that we have some veteran leadership. One of my players, he's been here thanks to COVID, literally like 6 years, And so I trust him a lot. And so he's able to come in and bring stuff. And so I think it's just having an open mind, to what players are bringing you, coaches are bringing you, and just seeing, okay, who's really my audience? I have a different team now than I did 10 years ago, and they're just different in different ways, and so what's gonna work to help them, again, grow mind, body, and soul. I know everyone hears mind, body, and soul, but like, that's really what our jobs are as coaches, is we get them for that small window. I always like to say it's like they're walking out of their house, then you have the door frame, which is about 4 inches, a door frame, and then they walk outside. Well, college is like that door frame. You only get them for that little bit as they walk through, and you get to help them, pave the way for it. They can go right, they can go left, they can go straight, and that plays a big influence. So
Yeah. You mentioned faith a moment ago. What are some things that you do at Carolina with your team to integrate faith?
yeah, no, definitely. It's really interesting because, like I said, I've really matured in that area over the years. When I first was coaching, one of my assistant coaches, I was like, all right, you're in charge of just, spiritual development. And I kind of just let him do that. And I was like, no, I'm going to do the X's and O's and make sure that, we win games and all that stuff. But, as you go, wins come, losses come. It's like, it's bigger than that as you mature, yourself spiritually. And so for us, we've really kind of just made that. That's a priority. We really recruit, we say Christian student athlete. That's a big spectrum. Really, that's everything from the player that's been raised Christian his whole life, and follows Jesus, all the way to the player that's like recently said, you know what, I don't know, like, a lot biblically or anything like that, but I just know I want to follow God, and I do believe in Jesus, and I want to be a part. I want to go to chapels at school. I want to be a part of what you're doing. That's a wide spectrum. So we try to meet them where they're at. And so some of the things we do, one of the things we first do at the beginning of every year is we do, you got to tell your story. And so I try to give them a little bit of questions that they can follow, but it's all open-ended. And we're talking tell their story. And so, some of these guys we've had where they told their story. They're up there an hour and a half,
Wow.
I don't put a time limit on it. And they get to really, people break down, why they're talking, but like, what that does is that opens all of our eyes. It allows us to open the door to build relationships, because really I'm hearing that and I'm like, man, I can relate to that. Or, hey, man, I want to chat with you a little bit about that. Oh, man, we got some stuff in common, and it really just opens the door. And so I've found out that's just like a huge way just to open up and allow guys to really, and I go first, and so, I try to say the example what it is, and just allow guys to just open up about it. Some of the other things we do is we do team church, every 3 weeks. And so as a team, we're in a good sized city. We go visit a different church and we go worship together. Because I got guys from all kinds of different backgrounds, but in different types of, services they're used to. We'll just go worship together, and I've been pleasantly surprised. The guys buy into that pretty well, and they actually get into it and they enjoy it. So we've been doing that now for a while. And then another thing we just do, team devotions. That's just a big thing. But, again, a lot of it's led by team. They say, the good teams are led by coaches. The great teams are led by players. And so being able to have some of those veteran leaders, we start with them, and they're the ones that are kind of leading the charge on that, and, holding guys accountable about, hey, we're not going to be a team that cusses a bunch on the court, and we're not, we're not going to be one that like, oh, we need to react like we're going to fight and stuff like that. And so, it's really once they step in front of the team and just say like, hey, they pour their heart out, they tell their devotion, it really just gains a lot of respect and stuff. So I try not to force it though. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, the biggest thing I could do is, walk by example,
Mm.
and so, I mean, with faith, they get to see how do I interact with my wife? How do I interact with my kids? They come over to the house a lot, and they get to just experience like, this is what it is. And so it starts obviously with me and my coaching staff and living out our faith, but ultimately it's like the leaders, buying in and them kind of leading themselves.
What's the biggest challenge that you've seen to integrating faith, and how are you trying to overcome it?
Man, this is not trying to be a knock, but we're coaching to the generation of biblically illiterate students. I mean, they just haven't been raised in the Bible. So I mean, a lot of these guys are like, yeah, I know God, I believe in God, and Jesus, but like they haven't gone to like, Sunday school, or they haven't just been in the Word, with their family. And so, one of the things we really have tried to, dive into that. It starts kind of with our team mission statement. That kind of just, again, everything we do comes from our team mission statement, and we review our team mission statement at least once a week. In our team meetings. We were able to get a local donor to where I got everyone an actual physical Bible. And we've done that every year where they've been able just to have a Bible, and then we reference it. We try to get in there, and it's a balance. I try not to push it too much, because at the end of the day, me as a coach, they're going to do whatever I tell them to do. So like team church, that's why we don't do it every week. Me forcing them, they're just going to do it. I want them to want to do it.
Right.
And so what we found, like I said, with like even like team church, where it's like, we go to a church and they're like, man, I really like that. Well, those off weeks that we don't go as a team, some of those guys will go back to that church themselves. And again, I'm not going to say I have 100%, but I'm not going to walk the dorms and make them go, because at the end of the day, they got to at some point take ownership of their faith. And so it's just been challenging just to walk through, like, man, the starting point, like, it's just so fresh. It's it's like the word says, just infant. But at least that is a starting point, and we try to walk through that. So yeah, that's been part of the challenging part there. I mean, you think now a lot of days, we'll be recruiting kids that come from Christian high schools and all that, but they're really only there for sports, which again, honestly, we'll take that, because that is a starting point for them.
Yeah.
They get exposed to it. Maybe the seed gets planted, and like the word says, I mean, got to water it, and it'll grow when the right time is.
Yeah, that's great. How do you help your team navigate not only highs and lows of a season, but highs and lows of life? We're all dealing with the pandemic. Nobody saw it coming. Nobody really knows how to walk through it. Everybody has a different opinion. So how do you do that as a coach and a leader of these young men?
Well, we are, our culture, they say, again, I don't know how accurate it is, but they say our culture right now is just more anxious than ever. And then you have, COVID that's taken that. And again, I mentioned highs and lows. It's an opportunity is the way I look at it. I mean, even when we lose, I would say, okay, there's an opportunity, and not saying I love to lose, but I mean, that's really what it is, an opportunity. So we're looking at COVID. I mean, we're losing games right now and stuff because of it. I mean, we got players that may get sick. We got family members that are getting sick, but it's like, okay, what's the opportunity here? And so for me, I try to always relate it to life, because I believe athletics in general mirrors life. The highs and lows that you experience as a player, wins, losses, relational conflict, all that. I mean, that's what you experience in life. And so it's like, how do we navigate through that individually and collectively? I mean, the Bible talks about that all the time, your individual relationships, and then, being in community. And so, I mean, even yesterday in our team meeting, we were just talking about that. And so for us, it's all about, we preach a lot about being in the moment. Okay, so what's it be to be in the moment? We can't change the past, we can't go back and change it. It is what it is, whether it was a high or a low. It's a great learning opportunity. We can't try to be anxious about the future. I mean, I was telling these guys, I mean, we may not have practice tomorrow because I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe someone gets COVID or something like that, and maybe a game gets canceled or something. And I'm like, but how do we just be in that moment and bring excellence in that and enjoy that moment, as opposed to worrying about the past or stressing, being anxious about the future. And so we really try to push that hard. And that's where you get phrases, like I said, you asked me about coaches. I mean, one of the phrases that, Coach Mike used to say all the time was next play, which everyone kind of knows that. But that really applies to life. I mean, what's it look like? And so we've really kind of adapted to that. We want to win that possession and move on to the next play. And sometimes winning that possession doesn't mean we got to stop. It doesn't mean we made a bucket. It could simply mean, man, we gave our best in that possession, and that's the best we could have gotten, and we won it. It's still a win. It's not necessarily the way that the culture views a win. It's the way we view the win. And so we try to then, how does that translate to life? How do we win that day of life? You've heard all those phrases. And so it's like really trying to encourage these guys of how they just be in the moment and give their best in the moment and really just entrust their lives to God, and their futures and all that. And so learn from the past, be in the moment, and not worry about the future. And so it's a daily thing. So like we try to daily, every day before practice, in our team meetings, it's about, win the day, win the possession, next play. But what's that really look like? Are we talking about win as in like actual win and loss? Or are we talking about how do we just give our best in that moment and be content with that? Yeah. So we really try to relate that a lot to, their lives.
That's awesome. One final question for you. What's one book that everyone should stop what they're doing and read right now, and why?
So I have to be honest, I'm not actually all the way through the book yet. But in my men's group at church, we're reading a book called The Man in the Mirror. And, we're about halfway through it. It's by Patrick Morley. And, man, so it's not necessarily a coaching book, and I get that. And I kind of was just, thinking through that. But it's one of those books that I know it's titled Man in the Mirror, but it talks about every aspect, and it's just honest. So like as a man, it's talking about, pride. It's talking about, leadership. It's talking about lust. It's talking about parenting and being a husband and being in a community. It's talking about all these things as males that we deal with, we struggle with, but how we overcome it. What's the Bible say? How you're in community. And I'm just like reading this, and I'm just like, man, it's just real. So it's like a big picture, like it's just real, and it breaks it down. And, even recommends it for like wives and stuff like that. And so single men, it's just a really good, book as far as just being able to focus on what you look like to be, the Christian man and manhood. And I think that, our culture is kind of getting away from that and what they view as biblical manhood. And it just does a great job. So, I would strongly, now maybe the second half isn't as good as the first half. I don't know, but it's definitely one that it's like, dude, you gotta read this book. So,
yeah. Well, that's all the time we have today, Willie, but I've really enjoyed our time, and thank you for joining us on KingChasing.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Brandon.
Thanks again to Willie for sharing how his experience as an NCCAA student athlete has shaped him, what he's learned from other coaches, and how he pursues integrating faith within his team. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to the KingChasing podcast on whatever app you use to listen. We would also appreciate it if you encouraged others to listen and subscribe. Once again, we're thankful to you for tuning in and supporting us. Join us next time on KingChasing. Take care, everyone.